Welcome to NewYorkTrue.com. In a pre-4th of July press conference, Anthony Weiner issued a call for a Declaration of Independence from Albany. He accurately notes that as a political subdivision of New York State, New York City does not possess sovereignty or inherent legal authority. Instead, like all towns and cities, it only has the legal powers and authorities that the state grants it. As Weiner also describes, New York State has retained for itself control of many important functions widely perceived as city functions.
Today I'm unveiling what I call New York City's Bill of Rights. 10, and you can probably double or triple this list, ways that New York City is under the control of Albany in a way that is not productive. These ways and others are ways that if I'm fortunate enough to be elected mayor, I'm going to be pushing back against Albany, and that all citizens of the city should ask that these types of conversations go on.
Weiner demonstrated his strong skills as a campaigner. He clearly and smartly laid out the problem with both a factual description of particular issues and an intuitive appeal to New York City voters that we should control our destiny, or at least our government's legal affairs.
You know, we have a conversation about charters in this city. Some people like them, some people don't. We have a conversation every so often, should Albany lift the cap on the number of charters? Why should Albany have anything to say about whether we have charter schools, whether they be 0 or 500? New York City, the authority to raise and lower taxes. Look, if New York City representatives here in the City Council or the Mayor's office say, listen, we want to change the structure of our taxes, whether it be sales tax or even just the distribution of our real estate tax, that should be something that should be under our control. Look, let's be very honest about what goes on around rent regulation. The Republican Senate likes to keep the control because they raise a boatload of money from real estate interests around the reauthorization of rent regulations. They extract with a knife to our neck concessions, and I got caught in this dynamic, I think in 96 or 97, where they said you've got to agree to this level of deregulation, or you're gonna have no rent regulation at all. And we just have to call them up. I mean, there is this notion that the Republican Senate, they're really very interested, that Dean Skelos is fascinated with how much rent Mrs. Krapalucci in Kew Gardens pays. No, they just want to be able to raise money off it, and someone has to call them on that, and certainly not contribute to that same passage.
And, of course, he weighs in on the hottest Albany city control issue of the mayoral campaign, mayoral control of the MTA. It's an underappreciated fact that New York City does not run the subways and buses.
All I'm asking for in this case is not to dismantle the MTA, but give the mayor, and I suggested this in 2005, give the mayor a majority vote, so at least he's accountable and his members are accountable.
That answer leads to the weakness, or at least undeveloped, portion of Weiner's effort. He effectively lays out the problem using his own strengths well. Solving the problem, however, requires an entirely different skill set, and it's not yet clear whether Weiner will be capable of doing so. The New York State Legislature and Governor will not cede any power absent a self-interest in doing so. It's a lesson that Mayor Bloomberg and Mayor Giuliani learned. It's also a lesson that Eliot Spitzer learned. The fact that Spitzer was elected governor with a historic margin of victory didn't matter to the legislature, and neither fearful of effective retribution or enticed by promises, the legislature ignored most of Spitzer's demands for action.
I will say to the state legislator, to representatives in Binghamton, you let us govern New York City, and I promise I won't try to govern what goes on in Binghamton. That should be the deal. And I think that if we can show we can do more of these things, not only will it keep the lines of authority straighter, but it'll also make for better outcomes at the end. In most cases, what we'd be doing is saying to the state legislature, just like you did with the control of the public schools, this isn't functioning correctly. Let's give our legislature, our mayor, the ability to regulate these things.
Anthony Weiner's formidable campaign skills reflect his time in Congress and the City Council as a smart, skilled speaker who commanded the outward-facing bully pulpit. His Declaration of Independence from Albany implicates the determinative challenge of his campaign. Can he convince voters that he is also capable of succeeding at the inside game of controlling the machinery of government?